Holy shit, I'm back. That's right, I am back, and today we're going to be talking about Hunt for the Decepticons. Easily one of the most popular and well-loved Transformers toy lines of all time, it has to be in at least the top 5. The character selection and quality alone is enough to put it into the upper echelons of amazing Transformers. And what better figure to show that off with than the Transformers Hunt for the Decepticons Lockdown. First of all, I'd like to say I know this review is probably the most unrelatable review of all time, but really there aren't a lot of reviews of this figure out, so I thought, why not? This guy's painting and sculpting is absolutely immaculate. I love how long his neck is, and that face sculpt just oozes that good, evil energy. I really adore the spikes on each side of his chin, and not to mention the asymmetry of his torso and arms. I love that the asymmetry doesn't stop at mere design, it actually integrates into the transformation. The most obvious way to tell is that this door is hanging off the back of his arm, and this door is actually the arm. And while on the subject of arms, I really love how big his hook is. It's made of a more rubbery material, but it's still sculpted incredibly nice. And of course you get that classic piston movement, which you don't really see nowadays at all. As for his regular arm, it has this creepy, emaciated look to it, and I am in love with it. Especially the spikes on the back of his hand. I don't know why I love that so much, but it really pops out. I would call the green on him an olive green, but it is kind of brighter than that. Another thing I love about this guy is just how spiky he is, and how much mechanical detail they jammed into this guy. Especially the little gray pieces inside of the thigh. And of course, because he's technically a Bayverse figure, he has the chicken legs. Sometimes they do get pretty annoying, but that's more of a nitpick in articulation. I really love all the gold paint sprinkled throughout this guy. It gives him a nice pop of color throughout what would normally be a very drab color scheme. You have the trademark car hood feet. This is honestly one of my favorite parts of all Transformers. Like, everything else just collapses onto this figure, but the feet are just the front of the car. Almost all of the previously mentioned spikes on this guy are covered in a silver paint. That is, except for the ones that are made of rubber. One of my favorite parts of this figure is all the translucent amber color he has. It's especially appreciated with the light piping. It just shines so brightly. And all of his car windows are that same amber color. Plus his headlights. And just like his hook hand, the regular hand is a rubbery material, which I am very thankful of because these fingers, if they were a hard plastic, have a very, very good chance of snapping at some point. If I had to find something to complain about, I guess there's 2 different shades of green on the legs, but that could just be written off as a design choice. I mean, the same green that's on the legs is on the crotch, so it could just be excused as a different shade of green that this guy wears. At the end of the day, this guy can wear whatever he wants. He is a Transformers emo icon. And of course, you can't talk about either of the early Lockdown figures without bringing up the fact that this is a deluxe class. Back in the day, 20 bucks would get you a hunkin' piece of plastic like this. And just to remind you, here's an example of a modern deluxe class. I know that this isn't the best example because Bumblebee is supposed to be this size, but still, deluxe class. Deluxe class. I know that this guy is basically the animated one just shoved through the Bayversifier, but I largely prefer this design over the animated one. It's so much more gritty and serious. It feels more Transformers-y and less cartoony. Okay, I guess that doesn't make sense, but you get what I mean, right? This one is more generic Transformers, while the animated one is very much animated. And that stylization means you can put him with almost any other line. He feels like he belongs there, which is incredibly rare for a figure like this. In terms of accessories, he comes with the motor that is also the EMP blaster, and it is sculpted very, very nicely in my opinion. You even get 2 barrels right here, which kind of looks like a minigun and just a regular blaster. It's small and very simplistic, but it works like a charm. Now with all that out of the way, let's talk about his articulation. This being an older figure, my copy does have a few loose ball joints, mainly in the arms. But that's an easy fix, I just haven't done it yet. Sadly, the elbow joint at his hook hand is very, very hindered. You really can't get that much range out of it, and it is very depressing. But you do get a transformation joint ab crunch, which is always appreciated. But because of that ab crunch, there isn't a waist swivel, which really sucks. Waist swivels just add so much more to a figure's articulation and dynamic feeling that it's definitely noticeable that it's not here. One of my favorite parts is the thigh swivel because that inner gray piece on the thigh moves with the swivel. I absolutely love the Mecha Live stuff that we used to get all the time back in the day, but never get it anymore. And the infamous chicken leg, which honestly is just one of my least favorite parts of any Transformers figure. I really don't get down with the way that they move, and it's pretty hard to get a handle on it. It's one of those points of articulation where you really just have to get a hold on it and learn how to work with it instead of against it. One of my biggest early complaints with this figure was the lack of ankle pivot. But that was before I realized the connective joint here is a mushroom peg and it just moves the whole calf. It's not the best ankle pivot, but it's definitely better than nothing, man. And you have a choice of preference if you want him to have a long neck or if you want him to have a short one. Personally, most of the time I like to go somewhere in between, but I've seen it both ways. This figure has a perfect combination of size, articulation, and detail. It all amalgamizes into this amazing hunk of plastic. But obviously, he's a Transformer, he does more than just robot mode, so let's get into his sports car mode. As for this guy's vehicle mode, it has to be one of my favorite vehicle modes in all of my collection. I know I've said that at least 3 times in one of these reviews before, but seriously, this one is so badass. This is really where all the spikes start to come out. And oh, it is so beautiful. You get all that immaculate panel lining detail on it too. Every part on this figure has a place to be and it fits there very well. Mine sadly does have a stress mark on the spoiler, but I don't really think that's a big deal. I don't see how that could get worse or break. I got this figure when it was in vehicle mode and I really didn't know what to expect from the transformation. And it's not even that complex, it's just very interesting and fun in a way. And again, I know I've said this before, but I almost never call transformations fun. Plus, when you roll them on a surface, all 4 of the wheels roll, which is basically unheard in Transformers figures. This vehicle mode is not only one of the most emo and early 2000s vehicle modes I've ever seen, but it just fucks hard. Like, if you pull up in this car to any function, all the pussies getting in there with you. And honestly, you're probably going to attract some dudes too. It just makes me so indescribably happy to look at and feel. I don't know what else to say. I just love it so much. And with all that out of the way, let's get into the final thoughts. As for my final thoughts on this figure, I think it is extremely good. It's been one of my holy grails for so many years that it's kind of indescribable and unbelievable that I have it in my hands. Let alone that I'm able to review it for all you guys. Sure, he cost me a pretty penny, but it was worth it in my opinion. It's so hard to find this guy online nowadays, let alone in person like I did. I thought I was dreaming. Still, after all of these years, he's the definitive lockdown figure in my opinion. Far and away better than the Legacy shit. He's so much cooler than the Bayverse one, and he just fits better into my collection than the animated one. Overall, I'm gonna have to recommend this figure if you can find him for a good price. He's one of those figures that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm so glad I was able to grab that opportunity by the balls. So without further ado, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video and you haven't already, like it. If you want to see more and you haven't already, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace! Fuck!